I feel so proud! I felt so proud watching this, like an actual proud parent. Like my kid has just scored a goal and I'm boasting about it, like the British equivalent of a soccer mum, because we don't call it soccer, but football mum sounds weird. Sports mum? I'm that proud mum going, that's my Horribee! That's my boy! I'm worried how long this video is going to be because I have so much to say. I mean, I'm on hand movement levels of analysis right now. I genuinely want to talk about the way someone moves their hand at one point later. That's where I'm at with this. I also did English Language and Literature A-level. Did language bloody twice, but this is not the video for that. So I'm able to look at, say, this image and bullshit my way through it, like, the manner of which Jin's hair covers his face perfectly reflects Jin's own secrecy surrounding his character since he was revived. Jin's hand around Horobi's arm elegantly portrays the way in which Horobi is not only trapped by the Ark, but also bound by his own desire to protect Jin, and how much power Jin has over Horobi. The window in the background between them both, yet closer to Jin, is a reminder of the fact that neither of them truly have freedom, and yet while it is in reach for both of them, it is far easier for Jin to reach. On the surface, Jin appears to be pushing Horobi away, reflecting how Jin's actions against Horobi may ultimately push Horobi further into the Ark's grasp, as Horobi's dream is to be a dad to Jin, and yet Jin is turning away from Horobi. However, Jin's chained key wrapped around Horobi's Itachi bow, pulling him closer, illustrates that no matter Jin's actions, they will always be drawn to each other, and subconsciously, despite his instructions, Jin only wants for Horobi to achieve that freedom. You get my point? I take great pride in that. I mean, that was just a random motion shot, none of that means anything, it's bullshitting. So expect that. You know, not everything I'm going to talk about is going to have been intentional. At least I doubt it. I don't think the set was set up so that Horobi could accidentally kick something on the floor, but I'm still going to talk about it because that's what I find interesting. I don't know why I'm defending myself over something no one has said and making this video even longer than it needs to be. Someone shut me up, please. First of all, my fears were completely unnecessary. I was scared all the cool Horobi stuff would be shoved into 2 minutes at the end. But this was nice. He was in it for a substantial amount of time. I'm genuinely pleased. I'm genuinely pleasantly surprised by how Horobi focused this was. To be clear, not every episode has to heavily feature my favourite, but he barely shows up at all, and we haven't even had his own sodding voice recently. So, this was just so nice. But Jin and I are waiting around aimlessly for the Ark to tell them to do something. They're getting antsy waiting. Naki even says if the Ark doesn't need them, why do they exist? Eleutherophobia is a fear of freedom, which can occur after a traumatic event, usually involving a lack of control. Escaping slavery, for example, or a cult. Suddenly having all these options, all these choices, it's daunting when you've spent your life being told what to do. Making decisions is something I struggle with a lot, I always have. When you have a hard time with decisions, when you make a choice, it's not just one decision, it's a multitude of decisions. When that's easy for you, you don't really think about it. For example, what do you want for tea? Okay, do I want something hot or cold? Do I want something light or heavy? Am I so hungry that I want it quickly, or can I wait for something that takes a while to cook? It's a very stressful time of day. I actually very rarely eat breakfast because I can't handle the stress of making a decision by myself so early in the day. This is to the point where I'll put myself in danger because I can't say no if someone else wants something. To the point that when someone who assaulted me sent me a message asking if I wanted to meet up, I mentioned it to a mutual person, and what I needed to hear was, no, absolutely not agree to meet up, but because they said, oh, he's over you now, you'll be fine, I couldn't even say no then, and I agreed, and I don't know what I expected. And it's something that's just so ridiculous to someone who doesn't struggle with this. Oh, just say no, well, it's your own fault for agreeing, like, it's not actually that easy. Wow, do people take advantage of you when they know you can't make your own decisions and say no. When I visit my auntie and she has biscuit, I spend the entire visit thinking, do not ask if I want one, do not ask if I want one. She'll tell everyone to help themselves, to which I don't have to. But then my grandma will ask if I want one, and I'm like, I'm lactose intolerant and a massive germaphobe. No, I do not want some dairy-coated biscuits that have been sitting out in the open all this time and have had people's hands all over them. But now you're there thrusting the biscuit in at me and asking if I want one. I have to bloody have a sodding biscuit now, don't I? You know, this is an issue to my own detriment. Point is, this is one of many reasons why I'm so sympathetic towards Metsubo Jinnai, and why Horobi especially is so important to me, because I get it. When you spent so long without freedom, suddenly going without hearing from the Ark is going to be hard. And it just so perfectly shows how much control the Ark has over them when they're getting anxious about not hearing from him. Especially for them, because even before the Ark, Humour Gear don't exactly have freedom. It's not like they had freedom and lost it. They never had it to begin with. The Ark is just a different type of control over them. The scene also really, really makes me wish we'd have seen more of them all together, because I adore the dynamic they have. Because Horribee is naturally so calm. I love that juxtaposition of Ikazuchi flopping onto the settee and kicking something off the table. And Horribee immediately trying to reassure him, even though he doesn't seem that convinced himself when he says the Ark will return to lead them. Makes me wonder who he's saying that for. Is he saying that for Kazuchi and Naki, or is he also saying it for himself? He's trying to reassure himself. So then Jin comes by, apologising for raising the Ark and trying to sacrifice Horribee. Jin needs to bloody well go to his room and think about what he did. What the hell, Jin? I don't even want to talk about this. I'm moving on. Horribee and Jin fight. Jin questions Horribee over what he really wants. Horribee stops. Takaya Seiji does that amazing thing he does when he radiates really powerful emotion while being in a suit. How do you make a suit look so sad? How are you doing that? The Ark wants Horribee to kill Jin, but he just can't do it, so he walks away. Why do I get the sense every time Jin thinks he's about to die, he's just accepted it? Like, both times in this episode it looks like Horribee's about to kill him. Jin doesn't seem to be trying very hard to stop him. Maybe he really is apologetic. Anyway, I'll get to that later when I talk about the position of Jin's hands on Horribee's foot, but you can't wait for that gripping content. Gripping, because he's gripping. I'll move on. Then Guy just hands Hidden Intelligence back to Adato, which, I mean, what the hell did we go through the entire tournament arc for then? The Ark now wants to kill Humagear too. Tries to get Horribee to kill these two Humagear playing with kids, and I don't think that's a coincidence. The Ark trying to get Horribee to kill not just any random Humagear, but Humagear playing with kids. Horribee can't do it. He flashes back to not being able to kill Jin, and Adato telling him he wants to protect Jin, not because the Ark is telling him to, but because he's his dad, and he lowers his bow. Afterwards, Jin shows up. Horribee stops himself, and then afterwards, after the flashbacks, after lowering his bow, only then does Jin show up. Horribee stopped himself. Jin shows up and says, "Do you remember now why you saved me? Isn't this proof of your own will?" And Horribee, again, has a really hard time with this. It's always so heartbreaking watching Horribee argue that he is indeed just a tool. He exists to save the Ark, he does not have a will of his own. Because in all honesty, the alternative is even more scary. To be honest, if I was punished like he is later on for simply asking questions, I'd probably react the same way to someone telling me I have a will of my own. So Horribee shakes his head, says, "You're wrong. And just as he starts getting emotional, the Ark steps in, and Horribee needs the Ark to tell him what to do because he's lost without that. And Kiwat is probably my favourite fight of the entire series so far. How amazing was that? God, I wish Horribee fought more often. He's so cool both in and out of suit. He's the coolest looking person when he fights, in my opinion. Jin does not attack at all during this fight scene. He's purely on the defensive. Even though this is Kamen Rider and he could totally have henshined anytime he wanted. I don't know, it just further makes me think that maybe he really is apologetic. And he can't bring himself to fight Horribee. Even though it isn't Horribee, it's the Ark. But still. But the Ark is so focused on fighting Jin, he even kicks a large metal pole across the floor and still continues fighting. I'm sure that wasn't intentional, but wow, did that just further make Horribee feel like the Ark's puppet, essentially. The Ark isn't even concerned about trip hazards. Just continues fighting. Horribee, the Ark, steps on Jin and prepares to deal the final blow. And Jin does not look, to me at least, like he's trying very hard to push Horribee's foot off him. First he's just grasping, then he slows down and becomes almost gentle even. To me it feels less like, "Oh my god, get off me, Ark," and more like a child reaching to his dad for comfort or even trying to be there for Horribee. Just that his one hand is on top of Horribee's foot and the other is around his ankle, right? If Horribee was to now lift his foot, Jin could easily grasp it and keep it down, like his hands would go up with it. That's the opposite placement you'd expect from someone trying to push him off. To me, he's not trying to push him off, he's trying to hold on to him. Horribee again stops himself, and Jin reaches out to Horribee. Very subtly, but god, both Sunagawa and Nakagawa are so good at the little subtleties like that. Those are tiny little things that you probably wouldn't even think about if you didn't have a habit of over-analysing like me, but just add real feeling and authenticity to it. The fact that Jin is looking up at Horribee, seemingly scared he was going to die, and then reaches out softly to grasp at his leg. Surely you'd want to scramble away from the person who tried to kill you, but Horribee didn't try to kill him, the Ark did. And this isn't the Ark, this is Horribee. This isn't the person who tried to kill him, this is the person who keeps protecting him, and Jin reacted as such. Not, "Oh my god, Ark, get away from me," but like, "Horribee, it's you saved me." Horribee naturally struggles with this, and he has flashbacks again. I find the specific flashbacks really interesting. First of all, it's the time he stood between Adato and Jin to protect him. Then it's Adato telling him he has a will of his own. Then it's walking away with Naki. Then we go back to Baby Jin flashbacks, specifically Zetsuma and Jin tensioning together, asking for Kazuchi's key back, and Jin making a grave for Kazuchi and Ansatsu-chan. They intrigue me so much, because Haruhi's dream is to be Jin's dad, that's what he wants. And he's flashing back to the not so nice moment. There were plenty of sweet, adorable moments between the two of them, but Zetsuma Jin was definitely not one of them. He's not just remembering Jin, he's remembering the time he failed to protect him. Almost like regret, almost like this is something that sparks the anger against the Ark. The realisation that he could have been a good dad to Jin, but the Ark just wouldn't let him. The second scene comes out of episode 9, I Will Take Care of That Life, the second hospital episode, and it was, as far as I remember, the first time they henshin together, because the episode before that was Haruhi's rider debut, so yeah, this would have been the first time. The third scene is him at the farm place asking for Kazuchi's data key back. This is the event that happens before the Chishiyoya dakarada, so negata karada, chigau ka, omae wa aoku janai, omae wa omae nanda, omae jishi no yume ga aru hazu da episode. Which is also important scene, which I'll get to in a sec. And the fourth scene is Jin making a grave for Ansatsu-chan and Kazuchi Nii-chan. In that particular moment that Haruhi is looking back at, Jin is saying he wants to get revenge for them. He's honouring his deceased family members, and Jin wants revenge on the humans who killed them. It's important for later. Haruhi asks the Ark why he wants to kill Humagir. The Ark says, "You intend to oppose my will, Haruhi, that is beyond you," and does this. No, but again, tell me how Haruhi just hasn't been trying hard enough. Haruhi always answers Jin's questions. He's better than a lot of parents I know in that regard. Never seems put out by Jin's questions, never tells him he's busy or to stop bloody asking. He always answers, whereas the Ark punishes him for daring to ask why, to the point that he collapses on his knees. How powerful an image is that? And Haruhi, so proud, goes to punch the Ark, thus forcing him out of him and into Jin. He says, "It seems I should have destroyed you first, because the Ark is a bitch." I have to say, the Ark has ended up being one of my favourite characters. I love everything he says and the way he says it. It's again the difference between loving a character as a character and loving a character as a person. As people, obviously I don't like the Ark, and I don't like Guy. I wish nothing but the worst for both of them. But as characters, I absolutely adore them both and love every second they're on screen. Haruhi's first vocalised choice of his own is to save Jin, and oh, the bloody music! It's the same music! It's the music from episode 35, What Did Humagir Dream Of? While Haruhi is struggling with the realisation that he does actually have a will of his own, you know, before going into denial. It's the same music! I can't play it because copyright, but it's this music. I'm not gonna lie, I actually cried. I cried at the episode 35 scene, and I cried at this one. Just that music, it gets me. This was such a heroic moment from Haruhi. The music swells while he fights the Ark to save his son. Haruhi is finally getting the redemption he deserves. I say it like that because he himself has not done anything the Ark has, because he's, what is he? He was hacked by the Ark. But still, he's finally getting what he deserves. You're the one who'll be destroyed, Ark. That is Metsubo Jinrai Net's. And my own will. Oriwa Ishida. Crying! This is where the entire series has been leading for me. This is the moment I've been waiting for. And then, as if things couldn't get any more intense, Ikazuchi and Subaru blow up the Sonic satellite. I can't even put into words. I felt like watching a bloody film all of a sudden. That's the only way I can describe this moment. Talk about writing every episode like the finale. This outcome is inconceivable, the Ark says. I know, I didn't say that coming either. I need a moment to calm down after that. That was such an intense and emotional episode. That is the happiest I have felt in a long time. There's absolutely nothing that could bring me down now. Yep, that'll do it. Although, thanks to you, looks at Jin, I found my dream. Tsunagawa, please, you're killing me. And the Jin wanted revenge on the humans who killed Ansatsu-chan and Kazuchi, and Haruhi is now saying that as long as humanity still exists, so will the Ark. Humans are still a species worth extinguishing. Am I looking too deeply into that? absolutely, but it's worth pointing out. Okay, let's look at next episode. I reject the idea that Horriby kills Izzy next week. That makes no sense. He can't fully go from being unable to kill Humagear, being punished for asking why the Ark wants to kill Humagear, and then killing a Humagear. This is so strange to me because my favourite characters are usually the villains. It's not that I don't want Horriby to sequel of being actually legitimately evil all along because he's my favourite, because I enjoy that. Guy was also one of my favourite characters in this because he was such a good villain. I enjoy unapologetically evil characters, so it's not just that I don't want my favourite to be the villain because I like him and therefore he deserves a redemption arc. I love Guy and absolutely didn't think he deserved a redemption arc. I really liked the Garangi. I loved every second they were on screen. I'm absolutely not saying they should have been redeemed. But for Horriby, it's more that I've spent a long time waiting for this moment, for him to finally be freed from the Ark. We've spent episodes talking about how much of a victim of the Ark he is, that he basically has no free will of his own, and even the act of moving to protect Jin, he couldn't comprehend it. And even in this episode, the way the Ark was so much like a bloody helicopter parent. Like, oh, what's that? Starting to feel, are we? Yeah, I don't think so. Like, as soon as Horriby would start to do anything, the Ark is there going, so what was all that about? Only to then have him as the final villain would just be, well, what was the point of all that then? It's not like I had headcanons that actual canon contradicted. This is stuff we were being told. Jin was actually reaching out to comfort Horriby is an interpretation. Horriby is hacked and brainwashed by the Ark and barely has any free will of his own is not. Oh no! Is this a tragic event Jin's going to go through? We're still waiting on Jin's tragic event, aren't we? And now he's talking about how the Ark will kill Horriby at this rate. Okay, well, I'm gonna end the video here, bye!